Good morning. Welcome to AutoCAD Tool Palettes. My name is Stan Henney. I'm the Business Development Manager here at CAD-1, but much more importantly, we want to welcome back Mr. Warren Geisler.
Also known as Scooter.
Yeah, no Scooter. Mr. Geisler decided to simultaneously take on a hornet's nest and a ladder a few weeks back. Guess who won?
And the ladder won.
So we're glad.
I'll show you some interesting pictures later.
He's making a good recovery, and we're glad that you all could welcome us today. So and join us here. So this ought to be a interesting webinar. It's amazing how we still get a lot of people interested in, kind of some of the AutoCAD basics with all the Revit and Civil 3D and everything else out there in the world. So we've got a lot of people in the room today, and we're glad of that. So
welcome all the friends and family and folks and people that I know, and we got a pretty good group, and it looks like there are still people joining us. So we've got some housekeeping and some questions and answers to start. But the webinar today, a couple of notes. It is being recorded, so if you are having trouble hearing us or you're not getting the webinar, you have to leave early or something, this webinar will be recorded, and I'll show you how to find our webinars later on at the end of this one for those of you who are joining us. But if you just come up to our CAD-1.com website and take a look around, you can find our recorded webinars. We've got a YouTube channel where we post them all. So this one probably will be posted here within the next week or so, I would think.
Yep. And
as Stan mentioned, this webinar today is on tool palettes. So if you're using any AutoCAD-based application, that's AutoCAD, AutoCAD LT, Civil 3D, AutoCAD Map, or even AutoCAD Architecture, any AutoCAD-based application, then you are going to be hopefully learning some pretty good stuff to help you with your day-to-day workflow. But let's get into some of the...
All right, so most of you have been on a webinar, so this is familiar to you, but with those of you who may not have used this, we're cutting in and out, says Mike. Mike, no, your ears are cutting in and out. We're doing fine.
This will be the first question. Can everybody hear us okay? And if you can hear us, raise your hand. Hit the little raise your hand button if you can hear us.
Well, we've got a few of you that can, so yeah, it looks like a pretty good turnout. So good, you're hearing us. If you want to ask questions, type them into the question dialog box, and we will try and get the answer in context as closely as possible and keep the flow going well as well. So anyway, hopefully, Mike, we're picking up okay here. I think we should
Hope so. Hope so, yep.
Anyway,
okay.
What's next?
Moving in. Let's see. Okay. So information on promotions, sales, news, stuff that you're going to want to know about. And I'm going to talk about, or Stan's going to talk about a few of them here. But if you want to know more about these promotions, or if you're one of our customers, or even if you're not, preferably, even if you're not one of our customers, and you want to know what's going on, but you can be, and you want to know what's going on with some of the promotions and very important news, then just come up to our website, CAD-1.com, and click on the promotions link that I've got flagged over there on the right-hand side, and you'll find a whole lot of really good information, such as
this. Between now and October 23rd, Autodesk is running their third quarter specials, and that means that there's some pretty juicy rebates available for the purchase of either new seats or upgrades, or purchase of desktop rentals. Now, desktop rentals, what the heck are those?
Yeah.
Well, as we all know, unless you're living in a cave somewhere, Autodesk is moving to a rental model for their business, similar to what Adobe and many other companies are doing. There's quite a few advantages to it, but it's taking a lot of people a lot of time to get used to, so understandably.
And one thing I do want to, if I don't mind me interrupting here for a second, Stan, Autodesk sent out an email to everybody letting them know of these changes that are coming around, and we don't want everybody to panic. We've been getting a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, people panicking. Basically, in short, it's saying that if you have current software on subscription, your current software will not change. This is just for new future licenses of both the standalone products and the suites.
Yes.
So don't panic. Your current software isn't going to change unless you let it get off of subscription.
Yep.
So that's not an easy subscription. If you let it get off the subscription, Stan, what happens?
Well, very bad men come to your house. No, but kind of like that. Actually, if you go off subscription, then the only way to get back on, you can still use your software. You'll be fine. You can use it as long as you want, but at the point where you want to get back on and get current with your software, the only way to purchase the software at that point will be one of the desktop subscription, quarterly or annual or 2 or 3 year rental programs. So this all takes place. The Autodesk will discontinue the sale of single products, AutoCAD, Civil 3D by themselves, Map, Revit by itself, as of February 1st, 2016, and they will discontinue the suites sales, perpetual licenses, as of July 31st, 2016. After July 31st, everything will be desktop rental. Again, it's not a bad thing, but it's a different thing. And so with that,
oh man,
did you?
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
So do we.
Psych. Okay, I love that slide.
There
now let's get into talking about what everybody
you were messing with people's heads. I saw that. Oh man.
And it was even funnier for Stan because when I hooked up a little while ago, my video card froze and I had to reboot my system. So
I was afraid we were going to sit here.
We were just going to sit here and chat. So what are we here for today? Everybody's here to listen to me chat a little bit about tool palettes.
Yes, they
So
are.
tool palettes, what are they? So before actually I get into talking about what tool palettes are, I want to ask everybody a couple of questions. So I want to find out basically where everybody is. So for those of you paying attention, and I see that there are a lot of you who are not paying attention right now or may have walked away from your computer, so time to pay attention, everybody, and answer a question or two. I'm not going to ask you what your phone number is, or what your credit card number is, or what your email address is, or anything else. So
I am.
Yeah, Stan might, but we've only got about 60% who have voted. So I need everybody to get in here and answer a question or two.
The other thing I want to ask you, if you would please, is everyone hearing us all right? We've had a couple comments about things are kind of crackly and fading in and out. Would you raise your hands if you're hearing us just fine and very cleanly? Okay.
Okay. It looks like a lot of people have raised their hands, and it sounds like for the most part we're getting through okay. If you're not hearing us cleanly, and I'm going to go ahead and lower everybody's hands, if you're not hearing us cleanly, please check your speakers, check your internet connection. You may need to log out and log back in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to close this particular question and share the answer with everybody. And it would appear that most of you on the call today are going to be using AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT, and a good third of you are using Civil 3D, and I'm assuming something else is probably along the lines of the AutoCAD architecture. I'm going to go ahead and hold that one off. So the next question, and this is just as important, is what version of AutoCAD or Civil 3D or Map or AutoCAD architecture, whatever other product are you currently using?
We appreciate you doing that because it helps us kind of keep the context correct on our
I'm going to
presentation
be showing off a lot of stuff for AutoCAD 2016. Not that it will have changed that dramatically in the last few years.
Looks like people have settled down.
Settled down, and that's it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this one, and I will share it. And that's pretty much also what I expected to see, really. It's, for the most part, everybody's using 2014 or later. So usually we see when the new version's out, a lot of people stay on the last version or the version before that. So you might want to take a look at upgrading to 2016 just for the video card issues that we had in 2015. I'm going to hide that one. And then last question. This one is pop quiz. Let's see who can get this one correct. I'll give one hint. When it came out as like an application or extension.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't part of the program. It came out as an extension. I like that we did get one or two people saying what are tool palettes. Cool. If you said what are tool palettes, you are in the right webinar. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close this in a couple seconds here. Close it. And now let's share it. And what do you think, Stan?
Well, you know, that's a period of time when I wasn't in the Autodesk industry, so I'm thinking it was probably around 2004. But
awesome. Very good. Those 27% of you said 2004 are correct. Very good. It was sent out as an extension to AutoCAD 2004. It was called the Tool Palette Extension. It became a permanent member of the AutoCAD family of tools in 2005. All right, so what are tool palettes? Let's talk about what they are.
Real quick, Warren, I see a couple hands raised. I'm not sure if you're just waving at us or if you do have a question. If you have a question, pull open your question dialog box and type them in, and we'll get to them. We don't have a live feed on this, so
okay.
Let us know.
Let us know. Okay, so what are tool palettes? The first thing you need to know is, that's what they look like, but they're what are called Modeless dialog boxes, which were introduced many years ago. And they're like the properties palette, and a Modeless dialog box is something that you can have anchored, you can have docked on your screen, you can put it on another monitor if you've got dual monitors. So I'm going to switch over to AutoCAD right now just to show you what they are. Fastest way to get into tool palettes. There's always a couple of different ways to get to tool palettes. You can go into your view ribbon, and then in your view ribbon in the palettes panel, you'll see tool palettes. Or what I always like to do, I'm a keyboard kind of person, is Control-3 to bring up your tool palettes. And when you bring up your tool palettes in either one of these ways, depending on the version of the software you get or you're working on, not only version but the type, the flavor. Civil 3D will have different palettes. AutoCAD LT won't have some of these palettes, etc. So depending on the version and the flavor, you may get different palettes that already come prepackaged with AutoCAD. So the first thing I want to show you is which palettes come prepackaged with AutoCAD. When you see them, you'll see a handful of palettes that are already brought in here. If you right-click those little sheets down there at the bottom, you'll get a list of all of the palettes that are prepackaged with your version and flavor of AutoCAD. Now, they may be broken down into groups. So frequently, if you right-click over here on what I call the name bar of the palette, you're going to see a list of groups down here. And the groups are going to be specific to a particular industry or your flavor of AutoCAD, like Civil 3D or something else. And when you pick a group, and I'll show you a little bit more about groups later, then it'll limit you to the palettes in that group. So when you go in, an example, if I come back in here and I go back to all palettes, and then I right-click that list of palettes, and there might be too many palettes for me to see and to work with coherently. So it might be better to work with groups and just say, I want to work with a particular group of palettes that are prepackaged. So which palettes come right out of the box? And this is with plain AutoCAD 2016. We've got some 3D modeling, we've got some constraints, some annotation. I built one, I'll show you how to build them. And you're looking at this and you might be thinking, okay, so what are all of these? So if I look at this imperial door and I click it, and if you click anything inside of a palette, you'll see what's going to happen. So basically I zoom in and it's inserting a door. So it's a door block. Oh, so it's just for blocks. Now, that's not quite true. But what are palettes? So the first part of the what are palettes are, they're a Modeless dialog box. You turn them on, you can move them around. I can do an auto hide on them so that when I roll over them, they come back in. I can customize them. I can go into the properties of them, shut them down, and I can always just right-click. And my favorite way of working with these is right-clicking and either anchoring them on one side or the other. So as you see, over on the left-hand side of my screen, I've got all of my palettes anchored, so I can just go back and forth here. I got my tool palette, I got my properties palette, I've got a couple other palettes in there. That's typically how I like to operate. Okay, So let me switch back to my slides, and next question. So we've answered what they are. They can be moved, anchored, and docked. What can you put in palettes? Well, anything, any reusable content to start with. As you saw a moment ago, we've got blocks. You can have dynamic blocks, you can have standard blocks, any kind of blocks. But here's something a lot of people don't know. You can also put in lights. If you're working in AutoCAD 3D or Civil 3D or any of the 3D versions of AutoCAD, and you're using rendering tools, rendering materials, you can also plug in lights. You can plug in hatch patterns. Any type of reusable content. Switching back here. Now, when I've got the blocks, that's easy. The program knows where the block is. When I plug that block in, that's not easy to say. When I plugged that block in, the program knew the name of the file that it came from, the name of the block, and I can also change some of the insertion tools, the layers that it can come in on. But I can also come in here and I've got different types of annotation I can throw in. I've got hatches and fills. So reusable content, basically. And by the hatches and fills, if I right-click one of these and I look at the properties of it, it will tell me what the pattern is, what the layer was being used, it was used on. It'll tell me what the angle is, the scale is. When you plug things into a tool palette, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment, but when you plug things into a tool palette, AutoCAD will memorize all of the current conditions, layer, color, line type, hatch style, text style. It memorizes all of these things, so that the next time I just need to use any of these things, it's literally just a drag and drop. So I can drag and drop a block, I can drag and drop a hatch pattern, I can do anything. And it's reusable content. That's the first thing that we can plug in here. Blocks, hatch patterns, lights, reusable content. What else? Style settings, as I was starting to get into. Style settings. If you have certain text styles, certain dimension styles, leader, M-leader styles, any type of styles, tables, etc., things that you've built up, and yeah, you want to put those into your template. But what if I don't want to have to go find them? Like my text styles, whenever I want to go plugging in, let me move my tool palette out of the way, whenever I want to draw text, well, I've got to go to the annotate ribbon, and I've got to, oh wait, I've got to make sure that I'm on the right layer, and then I've got to come up here, and I've got to make sure that I've picked the right text style that I want to use. So that's a lot of picking. But if I've already done all of that once, I can plug some of that information in here, into my tool palette, and the next time I drag and drop, just like I did with the hatch pattern, it remembers all of that. It remembers the text style. What if the text style doesn't exist in the drawing? The program will create it for you on the fly.
Now this is, we're not going to get into company standards and company templates today, but this closely relates. I see a lot of people here are with companies, and then a lot of people we know who are individuals. And if you're with a company or even as an individual and you want to have a template that's consistent every time, this is a great kind of companion to that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we've got a lot of very large clients who are using not only their own standards built into their templates, but their standards are built into the tool palettes. So, and why are they doing that? Well, it makes life easier for people. As I just mentioned a moment ago, if I want to put a piece of text in, I've got to remember the layer, then I've got to remember to choose the text style, then I've got to start the text command. What if the layer didn't exist for some reason? What if I accidentally purged the layer? What if I purged the text style? What if I'm in somebody else's drawing that they didn't have the standard set up in? It takes care of all of that for you.
Or when you have new people start and you want to make sure they're using the proper line types or whatever it is, you don't have to go in and train them and show them all this stuff to keep everything consistent. They're there.
They're there. What else can tool palettes contain? They can hold commands, AutoCAD commands, any AutoCAD command that you can pull up out of your CUI, you can plug it into the tool palette. You can write into your own macros, Lisp routines, ARX routines, VBA macros, anything else. In order to get those in there and to work with those properly, you may need to learn a little macro language. So let's get into this a little bit in more detail and talk about how do you get things into a tool palette once the tool palette is there. Well, easiest way as you're working with these things is just drag and drop content. So as an example, if I've got a line here, and if I come over to my properties window, you'll notice that the line has its own layer, it's got its own line type, it's got its own styles, etc. How am I supposed to use these things? Well, the easiest way to work with these things is just drag and drop. So to use styles, to use text styles, to use dimension styles, so I've got a dimension style already pre-built in here, all you need is you just need one of these things plugged in to the drawing somewhere. It could be a block, it could be a line, it could be a dimension. And then it becomes as easy as drag and drop. So working with these things, all you have to do is develop them and then drag them and drop them onto your tool palette. After that, to use it, I don't have to worry about where the dimension command is, what layer I'm using, what styles I'm using. As a matter of fact, I'm going to create a brand new blank drawing. I'm going to start this command. Now I'm going to show you this here in a minute. You'll see that I've got this little flyout, and the flyout has a list of all of those commands, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. But I wanted to use this linear dimension, and you'll notice that not only did it hold all of those dimension styles that you saw in that drawing, but guess what? It created the appropriate layer in a blank drawing that didn't even have that layer. It created the appropriate dimension styles. So as Stan and I were mentioning a moment ago, when we're talking about standards, and yes, I'm an ex-CAD manager, I'm real big on standards, but I'm also big on trying to make life easy for my people. So you can build all the standards that you want to, and you can try to cram them down your throats. But how easy is this? Rather than telling the people, hey, you need to be on that proper layer. You didn't put that dimension on the right layer. Hey, you didn't use the right dimension style. Hey. Rather than do all of that, plug these things into a tool palette, so that whenever somebody wants to use this stuff, they can plug that right in by drag and drop content right up onto the tool palette. And I'll get into a little bit of that in just a few moments here as well. But you can plug all of that right in there, and it maintains your styles. Text styles. What if this dimension style used a particular text style that I didn't already have? The program would build the text style. So all of that gets embedded into the tool palettes.
Now, Warren, Daniel makes a comment. You might mention that the drawing that it comes out of needs to be available to the users, maybe on a shared drive.
Oh, good point, Daniel. And I'm going to be getting into that here in a few moments as I talk about building the tool palettes and managing your tool palettes. Those are two good topics that I definitely want to get into here. So the first thing is what are they? Real easy Modeless dialog box pre-programmed for each version. You can create your own. I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. It'll contain any reusable content. It embeds styles, layers, settings, all inside here. It can also hold commands, macros, and routines. And let me jump back in here because I do want to talk about the commands, the macros, the routines, etc. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can get commands in here. Honestly, I found that one of the easier ways is just to right-click on this name bar here, and you'll see an option that says Customize Commands. And when this pops up, this comes right out of the CUI, or Customizable User Interface. And this is where people look at this, they're a little confused, and they just shut down the program and go, okay, never mind. I didn't want all of my commands. I'm not customizing a command. Well, not what the program is saying here. What the program is saying here is which command did you want to pull out? Like as an example, I want 3-point circle. I don't want to go finding that circle. I want the 3-point circle. So I can grab a command out of this list and again, drag and drop that command directly onto the tool palette. That is one way. It's pretty easy. And it works really, really well with certain specific commands like regen all, zoom extents, or you can actually combine commands if you want to by using that macro language. So a quick example of that would be, what if, again, let's talk about that regen, and I want to do a regen all. And there we go. Well, right after I do a regen all, I want to do a zoom extents. Do I have to go find the zoom extents and plug that in here? Not necessarily. I want to talk a little bit about the macro command language. Now that I've got this regen all command in here, I can go into its properties, and I can see the macro that comes with that command. Couple of very quick things to show here. This --C, that's hitting escape twice. The underscore before a name of a command is really kind of irrelevant. It's just letting AutoCAD know that you're using the American English version of the program. You can plug that in here. But you'll notice that there seems to be a little space, and they're really hard to see. That's the same thing as typing in the word region all and hitting the space bar. What happens when you hit the space bar? Same thing as hitting the enter key. Now, I don't like the spaces. They're hard to see. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is that when you want to hit enter, get rid of the spaces and use a semicolon. And those can also be a little bit hard to see and a little bit hard to delineate the semicolons from colons. So this is the same thing as hitting escape, escape, typing in the word region all, and then hitting the enter key. So how would I add in the zoom command? Well, let's just start talking about that syntax. I type in the word zoom. Then what do? You hit enter, and then E for extends, and then you hit enter. So this is how you build your macros. It's really pretty easy. Semicolons for enters, the caret C for hitting escape a couple times. And then there's some more macro language in here. I recommend, we're not going to get into all of it, but I recommend you hit the help button and take a peek at some of the other macro command language in there. But as an example, let's go back here, and I wanted to use that. I just do a region all, and I was actually hitting, I was hitting shift. See what I mean? Sometimes the semicolon looks just like the colon. So it's easy. AutoCAD will tell you what went wrong. I'm going to use a semicolon. I'll hit delete. Semicolon, hit delete. And it's really easy to edit these. It really is. Hit OK. And that's what you want to do. You've got to practice these. And you've got to practice these on a couple different systems if you want to share them. So there I've got that command. I look down here at what's unknown command. The program's going, what's going on here? And now I click it. Look what happened. I'm going to hit F2 on my keyboard. It said it did a regen all, regenerated the model. It did a zoom. It did a zoom extents. And I built all of that into one little macro. So where you want to combine commands, we use this during demos a lot, where you want to combine commands and you don't want to have to type them in. And that's just 2 commands. I've seen macros that were entire printed page in length, for crying out loud. So you could, if there are several things that you're doing, drag a command in here. What about that circle? So when I want to use the circle, I just start that circle command. It did the 3-point. I picked my 3 points. It's drawing a circle. But what if I wanted the circle to be on a specific layer? Well, there's a second way of working with these things. And the second way, I want to put that circle on a different layer. Second way is just dragging and dropping all the content directly on top of your tool palette to work with it. This keeps everything organized, and it's very easy for anybody to work with this. It maintains all of the styles, settings, layer settings, all of the properties basically involved in this. Now there's something else that it does. When I drag and drop this guy, and you'll notice that as I'm dragging and dropping, I'm not grabbing the grip. Don't grab the grip. That won't do any good. You drag and drop it from some other place on there. Once I plug it in here, it's going to say it's a circle. It's not the same thing as a 3-point circle, but what does it do? Well, if I hit that little flyout, if you drag and drop any AutoCAD object on there, you're going to get a flyout of all the different commands. If you right-click this guy and you go to Properties to manage it, you'll see that it's asking me, do I want to use the flyout? Maybe I don't. Maybe I just want to use the circle command. And there's that macro that I can edit again. You'll also notice that it's memorizing all of the AutoCAD properties from that. So we're talking about making life easy for your users. Okay, another thing. Here I've got a line, and that line is grid line, and I want to use that grid line, so I'm going to drag and drop it on here. And it just says line. Okay, great. I don't want it to just say line because I want my users to know it's a grid line. It's going to use the grid line layer. So I can always come in here and I can rename it to grid or grid line or anything else that I want to. What if I want to use, I go into the properties and I want to use that flyout, but if you use the flyout, it's going to use all of the different commands, ellipses and circles and everything else. And when I'm doing my lines, my grid lines, I only want to use maybe polylines or ellipses. So you can choose which commands that you want to use and manage that all inside the properties, just right-clicking any one of your tools and going into the properties. So style settings, property settings, hatch patterns, properties, layers, properties, line types, everything else can get plugged in here with these tool palettes. Okay, back to my little PowerPoint. So, talked about that, what they are, what they can hold on to, how they hold the styles and the settings, and they can hold your commands. You can drag them right off of the CUI. You can type in a little bit of a macro using that macro command language, and really pretty easy. When we're talking macros, it's not hard. You're not learning Lisp. You can actually throw some Lisp in there. And as you just saw me using, I think the easiest way to keep all of the settings, the styles, etc., is drag and drop use. Create something, create a piece of text using a particular layer, style, a height, everything, and drag and drop that piece of text onto your tool palette. Do it with lines, do it with circles, do it with virtually anything. Next up, okay, you saw what they are, how to work with them. How do you make tool palettes? Well, quickest way of making everything inside of AutoCAD is a right-click menu. When your tool palettes are up, you can right-click on top of a tool palette or right-click on the name bar of the tool palette, and you're going to get some really great options in here, such as creating a new palette, deleting an existing palette, renaming the entire palette if you want to. I can also, as you see in here, add text and separators so that I can logically group a bunch of my functions together for people to use. Like drawing commands. I want to draw walls, windows, doors. I would put those all under an architectural group as an example. Okay? So remember, as I showed you earlier, first thing to remember is standard palettes will come with every install. It doesn't matter which version you're using or which flavor you're using. AutoCAD LT, Civil 3D, AutoCAD Architecture, you're going to get standard palettes. Most important thing is to take a look at those standard palettes and see what comes with the program. Why? Because of my favorite word. Oops, that's not supposed to be there. Reuse them. Reuse the palettes. Reuse the commands that are in there. Reapply the commands that are in there. Tweak the commands that are in there. And yes, plagiarize them. Autodesk put those commands in there for your use. Use them. Use them as a roadmap to figure out what you would plug in there to make your life easier. If you can save 10 keystrokes every hour, think about how much time during the week you can save by building things into a tool palette. Okay, so how do I create one? Right-click to create and edit and also customize. So let me jump in here. As I'm in here, all I've got to do is right-click the name bar or on top of my existing palette, and I'm going to create a brand new one. When you create a brand new one, it's going to come up with a name called New Palette, and then New Palette 1, then New Palette 2, then New Palette 3, etc., etc. If I accidentally hit Enter because I wasn't paying attention, it's going to keep that name of New Palette, but I can always right-click in, rename the palette. There we go. That's Orange Tool Palette. Okay, so you can right-click and rename the palette. What if I've got a palette in here that I don't use? Like I'm looking at this and I'm going, you know what, I don't ever use the constraints palette and I don't want it. You can always right-click and delete it. Not crazy about deleting any of the ones that come right out of the program, you know, right with the program, so be careful with that one. But as I was mentioning, I can also come in here, right-click, and I can do things like add a separator, and that's that little line in between groups of them. And that's pretty cool. I can right-click inside here and maybe even add some text and say, these are my zoom commands. So this helps your users group them. You know, I like to organize things. I like to make it look good for my users and be easy for them to read. I don't like having, 500 palettes on one side, and inside of each palette I've got 10,000 commands that they've just got to scroll through. So try to keep it clean. Try to keep it looking professional and looking nice for your. It's kind
of like balancing on one foot on a ladder while reaching across.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew that every one of the webinars.
It crazy if you're not.
It just gets insane. Every webinar is going to have one of those.
Yes, it is.
Okay. What about...
real quick, Lisa's got a question, probably in context here. If you don't delete an unwanted palette, can you hide it?
Sort of. Now let's talk about that's a very good question. You can't necessarily hide it, but I'm going to show you sort of how you can do that. And for this, let's talk about customizing your palettes. So when you right-click in there, you'll see where I've got the new palette, delete palette, rename palette over there on the left of my slide, but you've also got customized palettes. When you go into customized palettes, you're going to have two portions of this dialog box. Okay, on the left-hand side, And let me jump in here and do this. Right-click Customize Palettes, and you'll see a new dialog pop up. On the left-hand side is a list of all of the palettes, all of my palettes that I'm currently showing. On the right-hand side are those palette groups. Now, palette groups are not easily transferable. Palettes are, and we're going to get into that here in just a minute. Palettes are, but palette groups are not easily transferable. But to answer Lisa's question, what I like to do is I like to build a palette group. When I go into my customized tool palettes and I right-click, I can create brand new groups. And when after I've created a group, all I need to do to get a particular tool palette in there is just literally drag and drop it. So let's say I've got this draw one that I want. I can grab it, drag it, and drop it into this new group. Now, this is also, when you're customizing the tool palettes, the way that you can order the tool palettes, either all of your tool palettes, if you like showing all of your tool palettes, or you can order them in a particular group. So if I wanted that draw tool or that draw palette to be on top, you'll notice that as I drag and drop it here inside my screen, you can see the draw tool palette come to the top. So this is the way to reorder them. This is the way to organize them. So it's all inside that right-click and customize palettes. So this is where you can build your ordering. You can maintain your standards. You can add groups for ease of access and for working with standards. Okay. Now, where are your tool palettes located? Where are they? And it's all based on, as I'm saying here, location, location, location. And that's all going to be controlled inside your AutoCAD properties. Now, let's take a minute and talk about this for a second. A lot of people say, all right, Warren, I've created this really cool tool palette that I want to work with. And I want to turn on all my palettes. And there's my new palette. And it's really cool. It's the one that I want everybody in the office to use. How do I get it out to everybody in the office? Well, there's a couple of different ways to do this. You need to understand something about how AutoCAD works with tool palettes first. So let's take a quick dive into the AutoCAD options dialog box. So for those of you who are CAD management, who aren't AutoCAD experts, you want to avert your eyes for a minute because this is a pretty dangerous dialog box to be goofing around in. So don't go playing around in here. All right, so inside here you have something called tool palette file locations, plural, locations. Here's the one that comes right out of the box with AutoCAD. Now, out of the box, the one that comes right with the program is linked to your user profile. That means that everybody who logs into AutoCAD on any computer is going to have their own group of tool palettes that they can customize and that they can work with. But you're going to notice that I can add a particular folder. So we have a couple of different methods of working with managing these things and sharing this information. Method number one, understand that everybody has their own tool palette. It's in one particular location. It's easy to find a particular location. It's right here. Okay, I built my tool palette. How do I share it in the easiest way possible? Here it is. I go into my customized tool palettes. I find the tool palette that I want to work with. There's my new palette. You can right-click it, and you can export it. When you export a palette, it's going to export the contents of the palette. Now, if there are commands in here, like I've shown you here, it will maintain all of the styles, the settings, etc. If there are links to blocks, all the program's going to do is it's going to hold that link to the block. In other words, where is the drawing? What's the drawing name? What's the block name? So this is one of the things that Daniel was mentioning earlier. If you've dragged and dropped blocks onto a tool palette, you've got to make sure that you're dragging and dropping the blocks from a drawing that's sitting up on a shared resource, like a server. The server has to be the same name for everybody, by the way. So if I've called my server the P drive, then everybody in the office better call it the P drive, otherwise this whole thing's going to fall down. So before you drag and drop a block, you got to make sure that what we call the library file, where that block is coming from, is sitting up on a shared server, shared resource somewhere. Then you drag and drop it so that it's going to hold that particular location. then you can go ahead and share your tool palettes all day long. Now, everything outside of blocks, pretty much irrelevant, because everything that the program's going to need is going to be stored inside this exported tool palette. So that's what the XTP stands for, folks, exported tool palette, by the way. I'm going to plug mine into the temp folder. I'm going to call it new palette, and I'm going to hit save. Now, inside my temp folder, which I'm not going to open right now, you're going to see an XTP file, and you're going to see a folder with the same name. The folder is going to have all of the icons that I want to use here. Now, I'm going to get a little bit schizophrenic, and I'm going to act like the other person in the office. Okay, I don't have your cool tool palette. I go, oh, I want your tool palette. So I give you a case of beer, which is what it would cost me. And then you export the tool palette up onto the server, and you send me a link, and you say, hey, here's that tool palette. All I've got to do is come over here and go to my customized palettes, right-click inside the palette, and say I want to import that cool tool palette that Warren just put over here. There it is, new palette. Pick that and take a look. That palette just appeared, and all of the contents just appeared right in there. So very easy to share tool palettes that you've customized. Now, I've got to give you a couple of caveats here. If the originator comes back in and starts modifying the tool palette, we're going to have to go through this again. Okay, I'm going to have to delete this tool palette, and I'll have to re-import. They're going to have to export. So it's not dynamic. Sharing in this method is definitely not dynamic. So you've just got to be really careful. If you do an export and import, you've got a static set of those tools. Any changes, any updates will need to be made manually in this manner.
Is there a way to make it dynamic?
What a great question, Stan. I was wondering if he was actually falling asleep over there. Is there a way to make it dynamic? Yes, there is. You've got to be aware, like I mentioned a moment ago, that this says tool palette file locations, plural. The program will read the tool palettes from top to bottom in this list and plug all of the tool palettes in here. So method number 2 is that the person copies the tool palette from this location and puts it up on that shared server. And then they can go in and edit that tool palette all they want to. As long as this person adds that location into my tool palette file locations, I get to see your tool palette, and I get to work with it.
Warren, we've got a couple questions piling up here, and I want to see if we can get to them. Do you have a...
I can take a breath in just a minute, because I just threw out something horrifically dangerous.
Ooh.
I just said if I put my tool palettes that I've created in here and I put them up on the server, all the other person's got to do is come over here and add that path. But what happens if the other person wants to go in and edit those? Well,
then we just like standing on a ladder
like
on
standing on a ladder on one foot. Don't do it. So if you want to share these things, and if you want to maintain a single point of contact for managing your shared tool palettes in this location, you need to make sure that that location is locked in Windows. That's a Windows security thing. That's an IT thing. That's an AutoCAD thing. So that only one person or, whoever people have access. If you do not lock that folder, then anybody who edits that tool palette will be able, as soon as they edit it, those changes will be saved when they go to get out of AutoCAD. And that means last person to make any edits will override everybody else's.
Oh, that'd be bad.
That's horrific. We actually had some real fun with that when we were test driving this over at Denver Water, and one person would move something because they didn't like where it was, and then it would just got into a mess. So if you want to share a company standard tool palette, put it up on a server, lock that location, give only the CAD manager or one person access to that location, and then as they make the changes, then everybody else will see them. Now, what if they make the changes in the middle of the day? When does everybody else see them? Well, they'll see them after the changes have been made. The next time they reboot AutoCAD, they will see those changes.
We didn't give your name out, Polly.
Oh, Sandy. Oh. Whoops. But that was pretty fun. You got to admit, Sandy. It did take us a while to figure that one out. Okay, so getting back in here, you can have multiple locations. Definitely want to lock one and have the other one unlocked. Now, what if they've got one locked, and they've got that top one locked? What if the person wants to create their own tool palette? Well, that's fine. as soon as you right-click and say I want to create my own tool palette, it will jump right in there on their computer, and it will go to their unlocked folder. Okay. Edits are made in the first unlocked location. Now this can become a little problematic. What if I want to share Stan's, and I want to share Brian's, and I want to share Sandy's, and everybody's got theirs up on the server, and we all want to just plug in each other's tool palettes? Look, that could become really crazy. Remember, it's tool palette file locations. It's not limited to just 2. But if you have too many, it could become a little problematic. If somebody wants to make any kind of edits, the edits or new ones will be made to the first unlocked folder.
Okay.
Now for some of the questions.
Mark, we were kind of, when the mic failed there, we were kind of dancing around groups and so forth. Did we get your question about how to create groups answered, or maybe we should go over that again real quick, Warren?
Yeah, I think. Let me jump in there. So your palette groups, just like everything else, you go into your customized palettes. You can right-click in here to create a new palette, and create a new group. You can right-click over to the right to create a new group, to remove a group. Now, one thing I did want to mention about groups very quickly, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can right-click a palette and export the palette. The palette will be exported with all of the content. However, there is a bug that's been around in AutoCAD for a number of years. If you right-click a group and export a group, the only thing that gets exported, don't ask me why, the only thing that gets exported is the name of the group. Well, what about all the palettes that are in the group? Nope, nope, don't get exported, just the name of the group. Wouldn't it be nice if it exported everything? Hint, hint, hint. It would be really nice if when you export a tool palette group, all of the palettes that go with the group get exported with it. Let Autodesk know, folks, they don't listen to us. Any other questions?
All right, we do have a couple other questions, comments here. Daniel says, is there a way to redirect pathing if drawing gets moved? And that goes back to talking about blocks.
Yep, and remember, when I drag and drop blocks, and I'll give you that example right here. Here's a block. And I go in, whoops, there is a block, and I go into the properties. It's going to memorize not only the name of the block, but the source file. Where did it come from? The name, the location of that source file. What happens if the source file changes? It gets moved. Is there a way to change that? Yeah, by clicking in here and using the browse button and going and finding the new location. Is there a way to change that globally for all 10,000 blocks that I've got in my palette? No. So when you are doing this, you've got to be very careful, and this is when we're getting into tool palettes and CAD standards. The very first thing that anybody who wants to work with CAD standards needs to understand is that you have to have a very good, professional working relationship with your IT staff. Meaning, hey IT, I need a folder on a particular drive that will never, ever, ever change for my standards. And if it changes, I'll be allowed to come over and burn your house down and shoot your dog and steal your car. Because if anything changes, you are really out of luck, especially with tool palette standards, paths, things. We've got the XREF manager, which helps to some degree, but we don't have anything like that for wholesale changes or group changes in here.
Okay, John's got a question. Is this something that I can that can live in a template? And when the context of this, John asked this about the time that we were talking about the distribution of the tool palettes, and could that be put in the template somehow or other to remember that?
Unfortunately not. Tool palettes are not template specific, they're system specific. So unfortunately you can't plug a tool palette into a template. What you can plug or use pathing for tool palettes inside of your options, and that would be a profile thing. So remember, if I change if I've got tool palette paths, I can plug those into a profile and have people load those up. But unfortunately, you can't do anything inside of a template to call that out, system by system.
We've got some good questions coming in. The format of these things is a little hard to follow sometimes, so hopefully I'm not missing anybody's comments or questions. Phil mentions that, and don't use drive letters, use the actual path.
No, that's a good point, and that can go back and forth. I'm a big proponent of the Unity pathing. not a drive letter, not an X drive, but the name of the server. However, here lately, I've seen just as many server names change as drive letters change. So, you know, I'm actually, Phil, I'm kind of going back to recommending drive letters, because if the server name changes, I can repath the drive letter to the new server name quicker than I can the server name. So it really is a bit of one of those 6 of one and half dozen of another, I think.
Really what it is to have a good awareness of how you're set up.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it's server name and that's the best way for your organization to do it, I mean, from what you're saying, or if it's the other way around, just you got to kind of be aware of what's going on. And
yeah.
Probably everybody shouldn't be doing this.
Exactly. I mean, drive letters are one thing. You know, we have worked with companies and organizations that you know, you go in and everybody's path to one server with different drive letters. You know, in a situation like that, these certainly don't work. But you know, it's one of those. It's you know, with messed up drive letters, it can cause real problems. Yeah, I definitely agree, Phil.
Yeah. All right. We've got quite a few questions and so forth, and we're going to try and get them answered in the next 5-6 minutes here. Let's see. Sandy says, lesson learned on my end: if a user decides to create their own palettes, parentheses, not locked down, and they rename or delete the source drawing,
yeah.
The tools disappear. So that's just kind of reinforcing what you had said.
Yeah, if you're going to, you know, the blocks are the big ones, folks. If you're going to be using blocks inside of tool palettes, those library files can't move. They really can't move.
And Mark asked, do the master files have to be in a trusted location? And I think we kind of hit on that, but...
Oh, as far as the AutoCAD location? Hey, that's a really good question. If you're talking about the AutoCAD trusted locations for the security services here, and I got to remember where that is.
That trusted location.
Yeah, the security options, executable files, the different, and in files we've got the new trusted locations. I'm trying to remember where all of these things are. If you're going to be pulling macros or Lisp routines and attaching those to your tool palettes, yes, those do need to be in trusted locations. Got to remember where all that is now. There we go. There it is, trusted locations. So you definitely, let's say that you're going to have a Lisp routine that you want to call out that you want somebody to use, or a VBA macro or something. Those have got to be in a trusted location so that AutoCAD doesn't freak out whenever you're trying to load those up. Okay, what else?
Well, John asked, and I'm not sure which the last slide was, but John asked, can you go back to the last slide?
What?
So,
that one?
Probably that one. Is that the one, John? Yep. I think you just wanted to take a look at it there. So Daniel asks, I don't have the export option inside customized tool palettes. Right-clicking in my AutoCAD Architecture 2016, is there a setting for this?
Wow, no, not that I know of, Daniel. We would need to take a look at what's going on, because you should, and I don't even know if there's a setting inside of Windows, like a locking kind of setting that will keep that from happening.
Daniel, would you be kind enough to maybe, take a couple screenshots or
yeah, take some
something?
Screenshots of exactly where you're right-clicking, what you're doing, and email those over to tech support.
tech.support@CAD-1.com. I'll type it into the screen here. In the meantime, Joe asks, is it faster for a tool palette to open one source drawing file with lots of blocks, or to open a separate little DWG file for each block?
I'll be quite honest. The best way to work with block libraries is to have all of your blocks inside one drawing. And here's the main reason. This is the last hidden tip that I was going to show off in my tips and tricks, but you all will get it here. This is a cool cheating way of doing things. If you have a drawing like this home space planner. Now I'm in the AutoCAD Design Center, folks. This is the AutoCAD Design Center, and I've got a drawing called Home Space Planner, and it's got 10,000 blocks in there. And then I can just sit here all day long dragging and dropping blocks, either from one drawing or from multiple drawings. But you're going to love this. If I've got them all in one drawing and I right-click that one drawing, guess what I've got here at the bottom? It says Create as Tool Palette. I do that, and I wait a few moments, and what the program's going to do, and you'll see it appear on the left-hand side here in a moment, is it copies every one of those blocks, the name and the location, and it builds me, bang, and there it goes, a tool palette out of that drawing. So getting, short answer to your question, all drawings or all blocks in one or more library files. Now, by that I mean I wouldn't put all my blocks from my entire company inside one file. I keep them functionally grouped, like furniture and electrical and plumbing and things like that. But all you got to do is find it, right-click, and tool palette. Bob's your uncle. There you go.
All right. Bob is my uncle, as a matter of fact. Not really. Okay, let's see here. John, you had another question similar to Daniel's. Basically, can you do a couple screenshots and send that over so that we can kind of see how your interface is set up and see
we don't want to find out why you're not getting the export.
What's turned off or whatever. Let's see here.
I see a quick question by Brittany who was asking drag and drop dimension styles, how to change the scale for the scale of the drawings. There's two ways you could do it. You could have multiple scales inside your styles. Alternatively, really what I prefer to do, and we've had webinars on this before, is annotative scaling. This is, I use annotative scaling for everything, and I work with those scale factors. That way I don't have to worry about changing scale factors for any of my styles on anything. So Brittany, that's what I recommend right there.
Okay, and then, good, thanks for grabbing that, Warren. Sandra's got a question here, recommendations on palettes with multiple versions of CAD while migrating to a newer version.
I think one of the best things to do for migrating, the tool palettes are version independent, so using either one of the two options that I was mentioning, either having the tool palettes in a centralized location and having everybody point to them, or exporting the tool palettes, getting into a new version, importing the tool palettes, and then managing them that way. I personally prefer to do the export-import route because I can control how I'm exporting them, how I'm importing them, and work with them at that time. It gives me an extra level of hands-on work with the tool palettes as I'm importing them where I can tweak them. I'm not just relying on working with one set of tool palettes in one location.
Jan says that she's fallen off the ladder too, and that it happens. Jan, not in quite as spectacular a way to most people.
No doubt. Okay, so spectacular a way.
The poor guy broke his ankle.
Yeah, there, spectacular a way. Let me show you y'all, not for something completely different segment, a little picture. Yes, that is my ankle, and you can count them. There's 13, count them, 13 screws in there, and that plate is about between 4 and 6 inches long. So what did I learn from this? These things right here, just say no.
Don't walk up to them and don't get on them.
Only people, the trick, the saying that I learned is, the only people who have business on ladders is people whose business depends on ladders.
All right, kind of a last few questions. John, we may get into more, with your request there, we may get into more text and dimensions in a future webcast. Yes, we hope he has some pretty good insurance. We're lucky here at CAD-1.
Yeah, we've got very good insurance.
But anyway, Arn, we will not be sending out a link to this webinar when it's available, but
I'll show you where those are here
on our YouTube page and on our CAD-1 page shortly.
And I'll show you where that's at.
Greg, your question is kind of similar to the others, and if you could just kind of send a screenshot of what you're seeing or not.
It sounds like AutoCAD Architecture might have an issue. So we're going to have to do some digging inside of AutoCAD Architecture. A little heads up tip for you guys with AutoCAD Architecture, by the way, and the reason you might be having these problems is the tool palettes actually came out of AutoCAD Architecture. AutoCAD Architecture 2002 had tool palettes in them. Autodesk decided in 2004 to extend that to the Autodesk or the AutoCAD group through that extension to see how well it was managed. So there may be some slight differences in AutoCAD architecture that you don't have in the other applications. We'll have to do some digging and find that for you.
Yeah, we'll see what we can find and kind of try and get back with you or check back with us. Anyway.
Don't forget that we're running a little bit late because of our outage there, so don't forget that we're on Facebook and Twitter, and check in and chat with us and keep up with us, and we've got our standard list of services. Don't forget we've got online training, we've got online mentoring, we've got over-the-shoulder in-person, we've got classroom training and support, and last but not least, this is where you go to look for our webinars. Not only for our future webinars, but this will have a link to the webinar archives. This also has a link to our login page and classes that we've got scheduled through the Autodesk website.
Or you can just go to YouTube and click on CAD-1, or type in CAD-1 or CAD-1 Presents, and you will find all of our webinars for the last couple years.
That's right. We've had a boatload of them.
We have. Folks, we want to thank you. We're running a little late. We don't want to use too much of your billable hours here, so we'll talk to you again soon in our next webinar, and thank you very much for your business and your...
If you've got any recommendations on future webinars for things that you'd like to see, please just email us at info@cad-1.com, and we'll try to get them on the docket. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Now, adios and goodbye.